In the prior presentation, we talked some about Augustine's experience, but in particular, we talked some about his response to and way of dealing with the Manichaean rejection of spirit or immaterial reality. In this presentation, I'd like to talk briefly about Augustine's response to the problem of evil. Now, the problem of evil, as he dealt with it, and as presented by the Manichaeans, was a materialist version of the problem of evil. What I mean by that is the problem of evil here is this, that the Manichaeans thought that all of reality is made up of physical things. Some are more spiritual than others, meaning by that some are more transparent and light and airy. Like, for example, the light of the sun is very difficult to put in a box or to look at as such because it's so transparent. And for the Manichaeans, those sorts of realities are good, and the harder, dense, dark realities are bad ones. And so the Manichaeans thought of the physical world, or aspects of the physical world, as being evil, and the more airy, transparent, clear realities as being good. So now, in this way of thinking, the question arises, where did evil come from? Now, if you think about evil as physical realities, as material things, it is a very difficult question if you are a monotheist who believes in an infinitely good God. So think of it this way. If there's an infinitely good God who has created everything, and among the creations of God are things that are evil, then it logically follows that God created evil. God created evil things. Now, Augustine comes to see, through the help of the Neoplatonists, he comes to see that evil is not really an entity at all. It's not really a physical stuff at all. You can't go down and buy some evil, or you can't look at evil under a microscope. Evil, in fact, is the word that we use to refer to corruption or deprivation of being, of a positive reality. So in physical terms, for example, if I'm blind in my eye, you could talk about that as being a kind of physical evil, in the sense that something that should be there is not there. I should be able to see through my eye, but I can't. And therefore that lack of the ability to exercise a power or an ability of the eye is called an evil. There's also what we call moral evil, and this is where I do something or carry out some action that deprives something of a reality that should be there. So, for example, when I lie, when I distort the truth, and I should be giving someone information, but instead I twist it and distort it, what happens there is I'm taking away from someone, I'm depriving from someone a reality that they're owed. I'm corrupting and distorting a good, namely communication, the power to speak and to express things. Take murder, for example. When I murder or someone murders another, they are taking a good, namely human life, and they are depriving it, they're corrupting it, they're distorting it, destroying it, taking away the reality of life from it. So evil is not really a thing or an entity in itself. It is the depriving or corrupting or distorting of a reality, a being that should be there. So the question is, where does that come from? And for Augustine, he's very interested in the human will. Now, certainly with physical things, in a physical world like our own, when physical things come into conflict with each other, like for instance, if a limb falls off of a tree onto the grass, the limb will deprive the grass of sunlight and it will begin to die. And so that intersecting of physical causes deprives one physical thing of some good that would normally be there. However, in the case of moral evil, the source of that is the will of the creature who decides to distort something. So, for example, if I lie to someone, if I steal from someone, if I kill someone, I am choosing, at least if it's a morally deliberate act, I am choosing to keep something or corrupt something from a good that should be present there. And so I deliberately choose to distort information so as to deceive another. That arises from the human will, corrupting and distorting things. And so Augustine is very interested in looking at the human will. What is the ultimate source of this? The ultimate source of this is human freedom, which is a good given to us by God. God gives us the power of freedom, we have, through the power of freedom, the ability to distort it or to use it to corrupt things. And that's what happens in the case of evil in the world. Now, of course, there are 1,000 questions that may arise from this, and some of them, I think, perhaps insoluble or unsolvable problems for us as human beings that arise from, questions about why we got to allow evil to go to the extent to which it goes in our world, or whatever, or allow this particular instance of evil without some type of intervention in all of that. And there are lots of different ways of trying to wrestle with these particular problems. But I find myself in agreement with C.S. Lewis when he deals with the problem of evil in his own experience, which actually led to his conversion to Christianity, of seeing that actually by denying the existence of God, one loses an ultimate grounds for making a judgment that something is in fact evil. And I think Augustine very much is on the same wavelength here, that evil is ultimately the consequence of, or the effect of, God making a good world in which freedom exists. And human beings take the good will that they are given and they use it to distort and corrupt, at least in the sense of moral evil. And that brings about the evils that we find in our world. But in any case, Augustine, I think, is able to resolve the Manichaean problem of evil, which sees evil in physical terms rather than moral and spiritual.